Gerald Posner is an investigative journalist, Pulitzer finalist. He's the author of 13 best-selling books, including Mengele, Case Closed, Why America Slept, God's Bankers, Pharma, and what was the one you were mentioning, Stu?
Hitler's Children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gerald, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
Glenn, great to be with you. And I listened to your lead-in when you said, what is the Secret Service doing about the hundreds of groups and the tens of thousands of radical and extreme demonstrators in front of the building. One of the things I worry about is that the recent assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which exposed sort of how the paper tiger of the Secret Service, how they were not the James Bonds of the world that we had been led to believe in some ways, might encourage a copycat, might encourage somebody else who's on the edge to realize that the system is vulnerable, and vulnerable is with a capital V.
So, Gerald, I mean, you've looked at the Kennedy case, Martin Luther King. You've studied that for years and years to do Case Closed, and very, very thorough. When you look back, there were so many conspiracy theories on that, and that's because there were some things that just didn't seem right at the time, like Oswald being shot right after. Mm-hmm. This is conspiracy central because everything the government is doing, everything the Secret Service is doing, the FBI, is not normal. And if you don't want conspiracy theories, they're acting exactly the wrong way. And so I don't know what's fact and what's theory. I don't know how to process this with a government that you don't trust.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Look, you hit the nail on the head. The government in this case is not only hiding the information from the American public, from investigators, from researchers. We're getting some members in Congress who are getting whistleblowers who are coming forward. That's not the way to get information on when the former president of the United States came within an inch of being killed. They should have learned from the Kennedy assassination. They didn't. They should have learned from the King assassination. Cover-ups do not work well. And it doesn't have to be the cover-up of a murder. It's just a cover-up of the truth. They hide things. They keep documents back. They have communications here that they say they didn't hold on to. There's a whole series of things. They've stonewalled from the beginning. And Glenn, we became accustomed over time on these things, whether it was 9/11 or whether it was a Cat 5 hurricane that came in or an earthquake. The government has these round-the-clock news conferences in which people from FEMA and the FBI and whatever else, they hold the conferences. If the investigators can't say something because it's under investigation, they'll say, I'm sorry, I can't comment on that now, but here's what we can tell you. And here they went into a silo. They didn't say anything at all. Not until we saw the former, disgraced Secret Service director get subpoenaed before Congress, or she wouldn't have even been there, and then stonewall them that day. No wonder people are skeptical about what happened. And one last thing, I think, you hit a key thing when you said the Kennedy and King assassinations, which I have studied. One of the things that they have in common with this assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which raises questions from the get-go, is you have a shooter with a rifle shooting from a long distance. In most assassinations, we're accustomed to somebody running up to the person they want to kill, like Sirhan on Bobby Kennedy, or when Wallace was shot by Bremer, or, Ronald Reagan is shot by Hinckley. We know who the shooter is. It doesn't answer the question of whether it was a conspiracy. Did they do it with somebody else, or were they egged on? But you know the person with the gun. Here, you have a shot from a distance with a rifle, which immediately conjures up all the ideas for people who've seen, Day of the Jackal, some hired assassin, something more to it. And so I think that adds to the overall conspiracy speculation from moment one.
So we also know now that 2 days before, they said they were going to increase Donald Trump's protection because they had stumbled upon a plot to kill him through a Pakistani with ties to Iran who was supposed to set it up and then leave before the assassination. And they arrested him at the airport the day before the assassination. But then we find out not only did they not increase, they actually decreased from 4 snipers to 2.
Yeah.
Now,
Amazing. No, it's the type of stuff that leaves you just shaking your head and saying, no, that can't be true. And we now know that was the first time in the Trump campaign that there were snipers at a rally. So before that, the Secret Service hadn't even provided the snipers. Imagine if this assassination attempt had been successful and the snipers weren't there. We'd be asking for people to go to jail. And you're right about they've had a threat from a terror state that they understand somebody's trying to kill the former president. They still have not upgraded the security to be as great as it would be as if he was the sitting president. They actually cut it down. We now know for 2 years before this, when the Trump campaign was asking for additional security for different events, they were turned down repeatedly, something the Secret Service had first denied and then had to admit when 4 whistleblowers told that to the Washington Post, no friend of Donald Trump. They even reported that. And so here's a case in which we have them doing less security, not providing it, notwithstanding the fact that there was a foreign threat to the president as well.
So what does your gut tell you?
Hey, my gut tells me that we're going to find, I think at the very least, like we did with Peter Strzok and the FBI when they were doing the fake investigation about Russia and the Russian dossier. And later Strzok's found to have had emails to Lisa Page that says, I can't stand that guy Trump. And he shows all of his bias and how the investigation was pegged. I'd be very surprised if we do not get emails, maybe official emails on government servers or private emails in eventual government investigations. If the Republicans take the House, keep the House in November, we will have those inquiries in which senior Secret Service members or maybe even those operational details for some of the rallies that Donald Trump was at are saying very, very bad things about the former president. And that is going to call into question, we think of the Secret Service as being apolitical. It doesn't mean you don't have a feeling about who you vote for. You go to the election ballot and you cast a ballot, but you're protecting everybody. You're giving up your life for the candidate that you're protecting. And if we start to think that they had tipped the scale because they didn't like the person they were supposed to protect, and they may have been lax to allow somebody like a Crooks, the 20-year-old shooter, to get off a shot, then it's going to cause a real ruckus.
Gerald, has it always been like this and I've just been naive? I mean, I've always looked up to Secret Service guys. I've seen them protect dirtbags and know that some of those guys don't like these guys. And I mean foreign dirtbags, not just, American. And they'd risk their life for these guys. And I've always looked up to them. And I don't know, is this new or has it always been this way?
No, I think that, look, and you see this very, very well, and you report on it as well, how polarized we are as a country. And it seems to me that has infected the bureaucracy in many ways. We talk about the politicization of the FBI. And if we think of that as the CIA and the intelligence services and the State Department, why should we be surprised? It's not as though there was a wall up that kept that virus from going over to Secret Service. But I do think, to what you said, that most of the agents, the vast majority of the agents in the field, what I call the close protection, those who are responsible for actually throwing themselves on top of a candidate if they hear gunshots, as those agents did who were close to the stage, and they are putting themselves in the line of a bullet for all they know. Now, one of the things we all said, Glenn, when we saw that play out, was it was very visible that when they lifted the former president gets back on his feet and they're starting to move in a cauldron around him back to the car. They have that circle around, that close protective circle. They don't know if there's a second shooter, if the shooter who's originally gotten off the shots is still active. And we see two of the agents who are a full head shorter than the president. The old way of doing it was that you assigned Secret Service agents for the close protection who at least were the same size as the candidate you were covering.
Right.
So that if you're trying to get the candidate out of there and somebody's shooting, they're going to hit an agent, not the candidate. If the former president was being moved out from Butler, from that rally after that failed shot, and was then killed by a second shooter because the agents were too short, could you imagine what we would be doing in this country? It would turn things upside down.
I think that day, I mean, you saw it. I saw it right after it happened, and it just clipped his ear because he moved. If he wouldn't have moved, it would have been John F. Kennedy live on television. I think that could have put us in civil war.
No, you're right, and I tell you that we now know, which we didn't at that time, that now we see all the videos. You know, one of the great things, the difference from the Kennedy or King assassination is people have what you expect, cell phone videos. They're taping the rally. They're there. And what's amazing is that 140 yards away from the stage where Donald Trump is taking the stage at 6 p.m. and then speaking, are a group of people, you know, regular rally goers who've gone out that day to see the former president saying, hey, there he is. There he is. See him. He's rolling over. He's there. Hey, officer. Hey, officer. And that, you have to put yourself for half a second into the shooter, the 20-year-old kid who has practiced a lot at the range. He's got this deranged idea that he's going to kill the former president. But he's he's found this spot. You know, he wants to get to the top. He has his rangefinder. He tried to get through the perimeter, and they turned him away. He's climbed onto the roof of the building. He's managed to get his gun up there, and he's ready to try to pull off this assassination. And now he gets spotted for this minute and a half, 2 minutes beforehand. People are yelling, and he can hear that clearly. They're down there. They're calling him out. They're pointing to him. So that has to add some adrenaline to the whole mix. And then a police officer gets to the top of the roof, right before he starts to fire. He looks over, and that officer drops down. But it had to rush the shooting a little bit. He had to be under the pressure of knowing it's closing in on him. And so we talk about, you know, the difference between getting off that shot and it hits the former president, kills him or not, could also be those moments of chaos that are playing out away from the stage that just made enough of a difference.
You wrote an article right after the shooting, The Forgotten Lessons of Dallas 63 and Memphis 68, and I just want to go through that with you just quickly. So this is something that I've talked about for a long time. It's one thing to say these tactics are very much like what were happening in the Third Reich, but when you have convinced half the population that this one individual is Hitler, and it's the end of the republic, and he has to, this I'm quoting, has to be stopped at all costs. You're creating this atmosphere, are you not?
Bingo. You're absolutely right, and you have been talking about it for a while. And I just was startled that you call somebody the coming of Hitler. They're going to be the next Hitler long enough, and you're going to set a sort of an atmosphere in which somebody who's already unstable, a little bit on the edge, is going to try to take it into their own hands to become the hero to stop that next Hitler from coming into office. And I will tell you that this wasn't just you talk about the radical extremists who are gathering in front of the convention and marching around. It wasn't just from the fringe. These were people who were from the campaign, from the Biden campaign. I mean, and Washington Post had an article by this guy, Mike Godwin. He said, it's okay to compare Trump to Hitler. Joy Reid of MSNBC was putting up videos saying, by the way, let me know how I get to vote to keep Hitler out of the White House. The New Republic had a cover story in which they had this Hitler campaign poster, and it was changed to look like to Trump. And Political, no friend of Donald Trump often, had an article, last December saying it's really unusual to compare a political opponent to Adolf Hitler. But for Joe Biden's campaign, it's part of the routine of running against Donald Trump. And now, of course, once the shot takes place in Butler, the near death of the president, they, for the most part, at least at the leadership levels, and that they stopped the Hitler, but they've already set the fire.
Yeah. Gerald, I'd love to stay in touch with you as this inquiry continues to go on, because there seems to be new things coming out every day that nobody is covering. And, this is bad for Joe Biden. It's bad for Donald Trump. It's bad for Kamala. This is bad for America. We have to be able to trust our Secret Service and know that they are on the up and up. Gerald Posner, thank you so much. God bless.